Claude Skelton Klein is the husband of Chauncey Klein and the dad of Dylan Klein. He is the son of the soil of the Virgin Islands in the Caribbean. He spent several years in the United States, where he attended the Florida Memorial University in Miami with a Bachelor of Science in Religion and Philosophy and a minor in Marketing. Graduate studies at Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, with a Master's of Divinity in Postgraduate Studies at Ashland School of Divinity. Claude served as senior pastor at the Prevailing Church in Detroit, Michigan for 16 years, building people and impacting the community through spiritual, social, and economic development. As senior pastor, he led the church in a relocation program and built a $2 million worship center, equipped with a multi-purpose space, basketball court, classroom, and offices. He also founded a nonprofit organization, Prevailing Community Development Corporation, through which they acquired over 300 parcels of land and developed low to moderate income homes in partnership with the state of Michigan and For-Profit Development Corporation. Claude was also tapped by then Mayor while serving as pastor to become the Director of Faith-Based Affairs for the city of Detroit. Claude has since relocated back to the Virgin Islands, where with his wife, he's built a thriving business with 2 locations in the food and beverage industry. Claude also offered consultancy services to government and private industry in building organization, mobilizing, and marshaling people behind various causes. In addition, Claude provides counseling and coaching services, especially in the area of marriage and family, through Grace Counseling and consultancy services. Claude is a well-traveled, rounded, and grounded individual. He attributes what gifts he has to the grace of Jehovah, which his parents and a host of mentors who has come alongside him on life's journey to aid him in shaping and sharpening his skill set that he may effectively share. Let's welcome Claude Klein to Pathways to Success.
Well, welcome to Pathway to Success. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Hunter, and I have the privilege and the honor to interview today Mr. Claude Klein, a great voice, a great achiever, entrepreneur, father, husband. He has been also in the political arena, and you have a powerful talk show. What's the name of the talk show again, Claude?
Honestly Speaking.
Honestly Speaking. It's such a privilege to have you on. Claude, tell us how was it like growing up in the U.S. Virgin Islands of Torchwood?
Well, Dr. Hunter, first of all, please, I'm grateful for you having me on the Pathways to Success. I am delighted in the time that we have gotten to know each other, how enriching it has been. So I'm grateful for you at this particular point in my journey in the life and indeed the life the journey of my family. So I'm grateful to be with you on this evening. You know, growing up in the Caribbean, in the Virgin Islands, and particularly I grew up between Tortola, which is part of the British Virgin Islands, and St. Thomas, which is part of the United States Virgin Islands. So my primary school years were spent on Tortola. My junior and junior high was spent on St. Thomas. And I grew up as an avid tennis player. I played on the Caribbean circuit, was a ranked junior player. I got into tennis because my stepdad, as a matter of fact, today, my mom and my stepdad celebrated 53 years of marriage just today.
Congratulations to them.
So I got into tennis on St. Thomas because he played tennis. And so growing up in St. Thomas and being an athlete in that capacity, it gave you a kind of a rigid schedule and instilled certain disciplines. I thought that I was just learning tennis skills, but indeed I was learning lessons for life. And I had 2 coaches, a white coach Coach Kelman, and then my black coach, Coach George Newton. And Kelman has since passed on, but George, Coach Newton is still alive and well. So they're the ones who helped to first shape and my life's journey. But it was great, growing up in the Caribbean. It's easy to move about, and everybody knows everybody, and so it was a wonderful experience growing up, both in Tortola and indeed St. Thomas.
So you have the best of both worlds. Really, you have the best of the Caribbean Ocean, the beaches, beautiful beaches. Because I had the privilege to be in Tortuga, and we had a great time with you in Tortuga. And
Yes.
Tortuga is so beautiful. Then you took us over to St. Thomas,
Yeah.
and we had a great time there also. And the people are so warm and loving. But you are a man that wears so many hats, and you have such a great catalog of success.
Yeah.
What was it like when you decided to step away from the Caribbean to the United States of America?
Yeah, it was an easy transition for me. Persons in the Caribbean, we would talk about going to the mainland, which meant going to the United States of America proper, although St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix are indeed a part of the U.S. And the citizens there have citizenship. The people there have citizenship. So normally persons in the Caribbean gravitate towards um, states where they have existing family members. So to make it an easy transition, I had three aunts who lived in Framingham, Massachusetts. And so when I thought about college and where to go, it was one of the ingredient was to think about where do you have existing family. So as a result, I ended up, which was a smooth and a seamless transition, going to Massachusetts. Started off with a little community college in Wellesley Hills, Massachusetts, and that's simply because I had three aunts who lived there. One, I knew I wanted to go to college because my parents were going to insist that I do. And so for me, going from St. Thomas to the United States mainland, I had been there several other times before due to tennis. I played tennis tournaments. I was heavily involved in church, and every summer, my then pastor would take trips with the group that we would sing with and play with, and we would travel particularly throughout South Florida, Central Florida. So I was very familiar with the United States, and so for me rather, it was a easy transition moving to the U.S. mainland.
And when you moved to the U.S. mainland, which school you study your college education at?
Right. So I started off in Wellesley Hills at Wellesley Hills Community College. And then I took a year off and moved to New Jersey. And I had another uncle and cousins in New Jersey. And so that year off of school, I spent working. I ended up working at the University Hospital in Newark, New Jersey. I moved to New Jersey, one, because Massachusetts was just too cold. And a little island boy going from St. Thomas to that kind of a frigid cold where you had just feet of snow was just too much for me. And so I ended up in taking off a year and moving to Bloomfield, New Jersey, and ended up in a job at University Hospital as a secretary for the head of the trauma department. And I got that job because in high school, I was a part of the Future Business Leaders of America group. And I learned what was called shorthand, Greg shorthand, like that stenography stuff.
Yeah.
And so at the interview, while they were interviewing me, the doctor and his executive, she noticed that I was writing in what she knew as Greg shorthand. And when she realized that I was writing in shorthand, she stopped the interview. She said, "That's it. you're hired. Just, if you can
Wow.
do that, we need you on the staff. And so after that year, I moved to relocated, got a scholarship to Florida Memorial University in Miami, and where I did my bachelor's. And that's where I met my mentor, Dr. Mackenzie Carter. I met him because my professor of social science was his wife, and she said that she saw me one morning coming across the park, and I had my book open because I was really reviewing for the test I was about to take. And she saw me somehow. She will tell me the story later. I didn't know that's what happened. She said she saw me coming across the park, uh, uh, reading the book, and I walked into class and I got a B plus. And she said
Wow.
to herself, if this boy can get a B plus walking across the lawn with an open book, I need him to meet my husband, who became my mentor, Dr. Matt King Carter, just a bona fide genius. I mean, literally, his scores were off the chart, had a photogenic memory. So I say all that to say it is that kind of environment that I was shaped in. So once I got my Bachelor of Science in Religion and Philosophy, then I moved on for my master's degree at Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's where I did my seminary work. That's where I got a degree in theology. And then ultimately move exploring options for what I would do. And the pastorate was a part of that. I did not want to come back to South Florida and be with my mentor because I thought I would get stuck sitting on him. So I explored some options and I ended up at a church in Detroit, Michigan, where I pastored for some 17 years.
Wow. What was the like? Because I've been to Detroit on several occasions, of course. I know Detroit is also close to Canada, so
Yes,
the cold, but of course you're acclimatized at that time to
yes,
all the climatic changes that you have gone to the different states that you have been in. But
yes.
when you took over as pastor of that church, what was that like? That was your first church you pastored, right?
That's my first church and the only church I've ever pastored.
Yeah.
Detroit was an extraordinary experience. It was a great experience. That's where I really grew in the practicum of ministry and indeed life, I might add. Detroit uh, was known for a rough city. At one point, it was the murder capital of the world. That's no longer the case. But Detroit was great. It was favorable to me, as rough as it was. Uh, the church at the time was a little church in the poorest zip code in the state of Michigan, the 48210 zip code. And in going to that ministry, about 35, 40 members, I suspect, when I got there, it ultimately grew to about 500 plus members. But
Wow.
as I walked through the community, I realized just the dilapidated buildings, just uh, no community type grocery stores. I mean, just everything that was missing. And so it began to shape the vision for the ministry because I thought and prayed to myself, if what I'm preaching on Sunday morning does not make sense and cannot manifest itself Monday through Saturday morning, then something is wrong with Sunday morning. So we went about a vision that sought to meet the needs, the real needs of real people, particularly in that community, by acquiring land, by engaging in housing development, by partnering with the local municipality, the state of Michigan. And we found a developer, a housing developer, who a for-profit entity, who we also partnered with and ended up in a building over, I think it was 6013, about 73 homes for low to moderate income persons. We ended up relocating the church, building a multi-purpose facility that we call Prevalent Center. That was our team. Our theme was prevalent, that we are a prevalent people. And built that space out, moved to church, grew. And with everything that has its challenges, but the rewards were great. When you're working with people, providing a service, impacting people's lives, at the end of the day, that's where I found the worth and the value. And interestingly enough, it was while we were doing that, we established a community development corporation. It's also how I met my wife, by the way. And when the then mayor of the city saw what we were doing, that's when he tapped me to become his first director of faith-based affairs for the city of Detroit. And faith-based funding around that time, that's George Bush the son, he was in power. So it was all around that same timeline that all of that came on stream, and I was fortunate to be a part of that journey. But Detroit was great. It always got a bad rap. The news media was, somewhat responsible for that. But when you look at the history of Detroit, the early 1900s, it was called the Paris of the Midwest. That's where most African Americans got their break, working for Ford and General Motors and Chrysler. And so it got a bad rap, but it was a good city and it was a good experience for me, as tough and challenging as it was at certain times. But what would life be without challenges? We won't grow, and we won't.
You have accomplished so much. Leaving from the beautiful island of Tortuga to the United States of America, academical achievements, and then building a very successful church. You've done so much, and you're a great inspiration. But also, before we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back to you. But you're also an entrepreneur, pastor, counselor, coach. You've also been a director right there in Tortuga. And you've wear so many hats. And so I want our viewers to stay tuned. Keep your seatbelt strapped on. We're going to come right back with this great interview with Mr. Claude Klein, out of Tortuga, the well accomplished.
Are you looking to advertise your business? Look no further. Pathways to Success is offering 3 30-second slots each Sunday of the month for $100. Please contact 561-331-1524 for all inquiries.
Welcome back to Pathway to Success We have right here, I'm your host, Dr. Michael Hunter, and we have the well accomplished, distinguished gentleman in the form of Mr. Claude Klein. Was born in beautiful island of Tortuga, the U.S. Virgin Island, as a matter of fact, and well traveled, well taught, well accomplished, a voice for the nation. Also, I really think that he reminds you remind me somewhat of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Oh my
There are, there are men that spoke
God.
out for the nation. Um, you are an entrepreneur, pastor, counselor, coach. You have also been a director, and you have also worked in government. And you have been a voice, the voice. I look at you as the voice for Tortula. Out of all these hats that you have worn, tell me what's the ones that have caused you the most challenges that you had to overcome?
Yeah, well, um, whatever gifts I have and skills, I must tell you, it's really attributed to the grace of God, and 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 that grace, that oil, we would say, if I was in a church setting, also has its own weight, and it does indeed have its own challenges. The challenges have been on two fronts, really, on the ecclesiastical front and in the governmental front. And that is true because in any of those areas, in the life of the church and in the life of government, you're always challenged and fighting principalities and powers. And so anyone who enters into those arena, in the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, that philosopher, he says that when you look into the abyss, you must also know that the abyss looks into you. And so when you're up against in government, it's principalities and powers. It's being guided and governed by principles that you got to keep your head on. You got to keep your head straight. You got your motives, your intentions have to be correct. In the life of the church, what we would call the kingdom of God, which is not a place but a mindset. Talk about the rule and the reign of God. And I must tell you, for me, though I don't see sacred and secular. I am a holistic being. I see them all as one and the same. So I don't separate the two. My whole person enters into life, of which these things, are a part. So I've met challenges and continue to meet challenges on both fronts. uh, and I don't know which is worse, to tell you the truth. Uh, uh, in, in the life of church, it's about people. And the truth of the matter is, politics is about people. What kind of education system you have, whether or not you have running water, whether or not that water is healthy for drinking and for bathing, whether or not the roads you're driving on are good. So it's all about people. And when you are in the business of people, it's a messy business, because if you're really going to help people, you have to step into the mess with them without becoming the mess and being messy, and helping them to navigate their way out. And so, it's been six of one, half a dozen of the other. They're right up there with each other in terms of challenges, but they are, I must tell you, they are indeed the most rewarding, because again, it's the mediums in the earth, the best ways in which to help people. Because even in politics, who sets the guidelines for how the market works and how industry works, how private industry works, it's all dictated from the politics of the day. And so it's incumbent, really, anyone who dares to live a holistic life has to get involved in both.
That's powerful. Well said. I remember when I was in Tortula, you took me down to the pier,
Yes.
and you really built a great pier there. So attractive. It attracts a lot of tourism and tourists. The shops that you had there. Tell us a little bit about that. Your work, your time that you worked in government, and
Yes, that's yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was the head of it was a corporation where the government was the sole shareholder. It was the BVI Ports Authority, and that was so I was managing director of all of the seaports in the Virgin Islands, and the biggest capital project that we had in the country was the development of our cruise ship pier, both on the land side and the expansion of the pier itself, so as to accommodate all of the new ships from Norwegian and Disney and Royal, all of which, by the way, are headquarters in South Florida, where you are. And so I've made several trips. I mean, tens upon tens upon tens of trip to that area in dealing and negotiating berthing agreements and how the pair should look and the structural and aesthetic qualities of it. And so I gave what I tell people, I one of my dominant skill set is that of leadership. And so you lead people, and you can't lead people that you don't love.
No.
If you don't love people and you're leading them, then you're going to manipulate them and take advantage of them. And that's true whether you're in church or whether you are in the marketplace or whether you're in government. So what I was able to do was to mobilize and marshal a staff of some 213 people, whatever it was at the time, behind this project that came off in record time, I might add, and now has become a chief destination, particularly for cruise tourism and for shopping for both locals and visitors in the country. So I was grateful to be a part of the team, even though I led the team. Nothing happens without a team. This thing in life is not a Lone Ranger affair. I hear people talk about, pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps. I don't know what that means. Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs someone to give them a break. Everybody needs someone to give them a hand, to give them a help up. And so that's how I do whatever it is I do. That's how I do it.
Wow, you're a man of such great social graces, and a man of humility, and one that is so inspirational. The when I came there, the pier was one of the most modern piers I've ever been on. And you and I, we really toured. We went to the several shops. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, I think we did a little shopping, buy a little item there. My
Yes.
daughter was there with us, and I was tremendously impressed. And one thing that impressed me about you for Achiever, you're so humble, down to earth. You
Mhm.
know, everybody a person can walk up to you and talk to you. You didn't have any bodyguards around. You're not a
No.
super person, and you're the best host. We had a great time
Yeah.
while we were there in Tortula. And
Yeah.
so, tell us a little bit about your experience also in giving consulting services to government officials and other organizations.
Yeah, I've always done that. We've always, even in Detroit, Michigan. I mean, the work that we did there with the then mayor and then the local municipalities, fellow colleagues, marriage and family has always been a passion of mine because trying to see family whole and well, and so a lot of both my training and my personal experience has helped to inform and intelligize this whole notion of coming alongside people and just helping them to navigate through life. So that's just a passion that I have. My wife and I do it now. She's also has that kind of grace and oil, particularly dealing with women. But it's the whole notion of consultancy is that in the islands we have what are called systems.
Yeah.
Unlike the mainland, you would know what that is to have a system at the house. That's where you house all of the water that falls off of the roof. In the mainland, you have the pipes under the ground, and you don't know where the water is coming from. Some reservoir somewhere, some dam somewhere, but we have systems. And so I use that metaphor to say, if you don't put any water in the system, then when you go to draw, there's nothing to draw from. And so part of life's journey, whatever it is you're going to get involved with in the marketplace, you have to delve into your subject matter. You have to learn. You have to become properly informed. You have to study. You have to read. You have to find mentors, both that you may know personally and some that you may know from a distance. Some you may only know through books. But whatever the subject matter is, you've got to know your subject, both theoretically and as well as experientially. So, all of my consultancies, whether it's been in government or whether it's been in private or whether it's been in the ecclesiastical realm, it's really because I've met some key people in my life, have had my own personal challenge, and it is through the mess and through the hurt and through the pain of that new birth comes, and new wisdom and new prudence and new learning and new insight. And so what good is it if you only use it for yourself? The goal is to reach back, and as you have been blessed, be a blessing, a conduit anyway of blessing to others. So that's what the whole coaching and counseling consultancy is about. Now, even though I do get paid for it, so I don't want to undervalue that. Your gift, the Bible says, will make room for you. So I've been fortunate to do that. We continue to do it, and it's fulfilling for us.
Now you're in the my mouth was watering when I watched that beautiful video of
Yes.
New York. I was just saying, oh my God. Claude had this video at the time when we spoke before we got on. Those about watering meals. I've been there, and you have the state of the art
Yes.
restaurants too. As a matter of fact, it's
Right.
two different locations, right?
That's
Um,
correct. Yeah.
and what made you go into become a restaurateur? What made you decide
Yeah.
that?
Well, we know it's named the original New York pizza. One fantastic place in two locations, but one tasty experience.
Yeah.
I, I say that every day of my life. I do
Yes.
all of these videos and the marketing. You know what's interesting about that, Dr. Hunter? I received a word from one of my prophetic friends back in 2014, Brian Kahn.
Yeah.
We were in Orlando, I think it was in Orlando. And he says to me, he says, what is New York? You been to New York? Do you know people in New York? And he kept asking me and probing. He said, I don't know. He said, but the word of the Lord is, you better find out what it is about New York, because there's something about New York that's going to be your provision. That was
Wow.
2014. And I had no idea. No, not to get involved in the food and beverage industry. I had no idea what he was talking to. And I want to say to your listeners, even Denzel Washington, that mega movie star Hollywood, when you hear his testimony, he always attributes it to a woman, a prophetic woman who spoke to him
Yeah.
and told him what would become of his life. And similarly, so Brian Carn, Prophet Carn said that to me. And then in 2016, it was just an idea. I met a gentleman in St. Thomas who were part of a franchising industry, but because we don't do franchises here on the British Virgin Islands side, I didn't know see how that was going to work. But to make a long story short, it started in 2014 with a word, 2016 when I first met the individual, and it was not until 2019 that any arrangements will be formed. recalibrating what that looks like and feels like in the British Virgin Islands. And it was in 2019, the whole notion of the name, this original New York pizza, came back, which goes back to the prophecy of 2014.
2014. Wow.
But notice between 2014 and 2019, you have a 5-year span.
Yeah.
And then the store doesn't open up until 2020. Now, Doc, what you have to remember, and I want your listeners to hear this, this is in the middle of COVID.
Wow. In the middle of COVID.
Yeah. My wife, we made a calculated risk, took a team of persons to Ohio where they would get the training for this whole market and what it means, how to do stuff, the product. In the middle of COVID. And then we opened the store February of 2020. While people were laying off staff, while businesses were closed down, we opened that first store with some 19 employees. People, and we had a grand opening, and people would later tell me they came to see if we were crazy. Because they could not understand who and why in God's name would anybody be opening up an establishment in the middle of all of this. And now keep in mind, unlike Florida, where you have Governor DeSantis, our country was really on lockdown. There was nothing moving. As a matter of fact, at one particular time, we were on a 24-hour lockdown for 21 days. No movement. And so I say that to say 2020, it opens up again because of a word, because of a man I met who was prepared to give me an opportunity and introduce me to other persons, because of a spouse that I have. I know the big picture, but I don't know the nuts and bolts, and I don't have the kind of administrative detailed skills that she does. So that kind of a partnership and I've been enjoying together, we were able to launch that first store in the middle of COVID, February 2020. And then by October of that same year, we're positioned to open our second store. And it just took off. The business model that we had fitted into the COVID construct. The product that we have, the personnel that we have was a good one. And persons kept coming. The persons are still coming, and we are grateful to God and grateful to our staff. I'm grateful to my wife for just doing an awesome job in just giving leadership to the staff and to the development. And we are pending a third store on one of our sister islands on Virgin Water that we want to launch next year. So we are looking forward to that. Not to mention, there are some other business pursuits that's on the front burner that we are working diligent to bring to fruition. And I want to say to persons, Dr. Hunter, there's a rabbinical saying that says, don't open a shop if you don't know how to smile.
I like that.
Making money is about serving people. So whether you're offering a service or offering a product, that is what makes money. If you're prepared to serve in some capacity, it is service and serving that brings you into a wealthier place where you can impact, help other families through employment, help them to launch onto their own pursuits. So we're grateful to God and to so many other persons just for the opportunity to be a part of this.
Well, I mean, your success story is amazing. Opening two restaurant in the midst of COVID, then while the nation was on the lockdown, and employed 19 people too. Um,
Yeah.
that shows the tenacity, that shows the great faith that you have and confidence. And that shows and that's the hallmark of a winner. That whatever obstacles or whatever things that are challenging, that doesn't stop you and your wife from progressing. And
Yes.
I want to congratulate you both also before and then opening that new place in Vertigorda. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to come
Yes.
to the
Yes.
whole
Yes.
place also myself. I've
Absolutely.
never been to Vertigorda, so I'm looking forward to come to that. But you
Yes.
also is a voice. You have been a voice to the nation. You have
Yeah.
been a voice that has been righting the wrongs, a voice that has been outspoken for the people. You know, honestly speaking, honestly speaking,
Yeah.
honestly speaking. And what led you to become a commenter, to comment on the things that are happening there, and to step forward as that voice
Yes.
where others are afraid to speak out? You're the one that is not afraid to speak out. What
Yeah.
led you
You
to
know, yeah, it's interesting that you asked me that because it just caused me to remember something else. In 2018, and that was after the terrible storms of Hurricanes Irma and Maria that touched down here in September of 2017, that devastated the property in the Virgin Islands. There was not much loss of life, but the tremendous damage. And so, what happened about how the Honestly Speaking came to be, again, my friend, Prophet Brian Carr, sent
yes,
me a voice note, said that he had been in prayer for me, and this is the word of the Lord for you. And one of the things he said in there, he says, your voice is going to become a very dominant voice in the country. And you need to find a platform in which it's going to be done. And so that word, prophetic word, gave birth to what we now know as Honestly Speaking. And I don't even know how I came up with that name, except that anybody who knows me know, I'm a straight shooter. I'm very unpretentious. I don't know how to do that well. Sometimes I wish I did. Uh, but, and so that is how it came about. And so I give social critique and commentary to where we are as a people, where we are as a country, where I think that God is calling us. And I must tell you though, you become the target. You become the target both by the principalities and powers. You become the target by your own people. And sometimes I wish I would just stay quiet and not say anything, but I can't help myself. I keep talking and trusting and believing in God. I'm fighting for freedom for our people, but freedom is very costly. Telling the truth is very costly. And I know the Bible says it'll set you free, and that's easy to quote. But when you live in and walk in that out, it comes with a tremendous burden. But I won't do anything else other than what I'm doing, except to find new and more effective ways in which to do it. So it's a blessed burden.
would you can you one day see yourself as premier in that beautiful island of Tortuga?
Do what you said? Do I see myself?
Yeah, and because you have been such a great torturer, and one who has really defied all odds, even to speak up boldly about the injustice of the sovereign nation that rules the island. Um, do you see yourself one day ever to step into the position of leader over that nation? Because
Yeah.
you've been outspoken against the injustice. You've spoken about the things that need to be done in the nation. Do you see yourself, if a group of persons should come before you and say, we want you to be our next leader over the nation, will you accept that?
Well, I was about to say to you, if it happens, God Himself will have will have to will have to will have to send an email and WhatsApp to whoever those people are.
Well, I'm going to ask my producer, send him an email from God now. My producer is walking right backstage. And if that email should come up before we close on this great interview, what would you do, Claude? What would you do?
I'll have to find the strength to walk it out.
I like that. I like that. We'll have to find the strength. I would back you here also because you're a great man. Um, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, I am zeroed in on, every year we have a family meeting, my wife and our son, and then we set some goals, and we are on a 7-year plan at the moment. People have pastors, I have rabbis. Even as a black man, I have rabbis.
Right.
and,
But you
and,
have a prophet too. I hear you
and
calling him
I'm
America's
getting
most popular prophet.
I'm getting ready to say, and I do also I've been fortunate and blessed with men like yourself who have strong prophetic oil and anointing on their life, and really who empowers and has propelled me through my journey to become whatever it is I am becoming. And so, there are 5 things that we have set out to focus on in terms of expending our efforts and energies. That's in family, in faith, in finance, in friendships, and in fitness. They all begin with the letter F.
I like
And
that.
so
I
5 years from now, because we are in our second year of that 7-year plan,
Mhm.
is really to get to a place financially. So a lot of our focus, a lot of our effort is being spent in building business in the marketplace. And I want to encourage persons to do that, to move as best you can from employee to employer, from renting to owning. It's how you're going to build wealth. It's how you're going to leave something for your family. And so, really, that's where my focus and effort and energy, by and large, has been on the private side to get our family, build business, get to a place of financial peace where money is no longer an issue, nothing needs to be discussed, that we have the means so that we can be more of a conduit of blessings to others, that we can serve, that we can be philanthropic, that we can do foundations that helps the disadvantaged and the less fortunate. So that's what we're working on, and that's why we're working on it. You see, it's one thing to know what you're doing. It's another reason to know why you're doing what is it that you're doing, so that you'll know how best to get it done. And so that's the family side in terms of building industry in the market. On the governmental side and the social geopolitical construct, I will continue to be an advocate fighting on behalf of this country becoming an independent country, having its own relationships, devoid from the United Kingdom, and really being and seeing themselves where they fit in the whole geopolitical construct of the world, and helping persons to become the persons that God has designed for them to become. So that's where I see myself, to continue to do advocacy work and champion the cause of people and build industry.
And you're doing a great job. I came there and I have had first-hand experience of some of what great work that you're doing. In closing, what advice can you give to those who aspire to be successful, to own their own business and pursue their own dreams?
Yeah. You got to be courageous. You can live life without a lot of things, but you cannot live without courage. And courage does not mean the extinction or the absence of fear. Courage means to press on and to push through in spite of your fears, to take the kind of calculated risk that are necessary for advancement, for venture. You got to be courageous. You got to move through life boldly and courageously. Number two, you got to equip yourselves for whatever it is you're trying to get involved with. You got to master uh, that particular part of the market, master that area of industry. Get to know persons who are better than you at it and glean and learn from them. Seek them out. Make yourself available to gaining as much as you can and put it into practice. And then, because I am a man of God, all of this, being courageous and becoming properly resourced and tooled, I house all of it in the posture of prayer. I seek the face of God, and I seek out men and women who know God better than I do and have better relationships to hear from them, to hear what God is also saying. So that's what has helped me, and that's what I've leaned on, and that's what I encourage persons to do.
Wow. So inspirational, so motivating. One who have aspired to great heights. In everything that you do, you always come out on top. You always end up being such a great inspiration. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Claude Klein, for being our guest on Pathway to Success and for inspiring us in a very great way this evening. In part, what word would you like to leave for the people for this week of inspiration?
Yeah, well, first of all, just let me thank you, Dr. Hunter, for the opportunity to have a chance to speak with your audience, and I would just simply, um, start where I end where I started, and that is again to say that quickly identify what your passion, what causes your heart to race, what wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and pursue it courageously with everything you have. Identify the right partnerships to be joined with, and make the journey. Don't hesitate, don't vacillate, don't procrastinate. You gotta make the journey. You gotta live while you are alive. This is the only chance you have. You got one go round on this merry-go-round, and you might as well live it to its fullest. Don't get to 60 and to 70 and live with regrets. I wish I could have, I should have, I would have. No. If you try and you fail better next time by trying again. And so I just want to encourage you to go for it. Go for it. And as you do, you'll make it. Something will break through.
Wow, you have heard it from the best. Inspirational, motivational, and one who has walked the path of success. I want to thank you again for joining us on Pathway to Success. And remember this, even as we close this evening. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving from Pathway to Success. And I want to also thank those. I want to apologize for a late start because of technical difficulties. Have a great week.
Yes. Thank you.